So we can start in about 3 to 5 minutes. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us.
Brinda,
Yeah, ma'am.
does Mr. Solanki know about Ashish?
Yes, ma'am. I have informed him that Mr. Ashish, who's a CA, will be the moderator of the session.
Done. Thanks.
Yeah, ma'am. Ashish, would you like to start the session?
Yes, if we can start, we'll get started. Yes. Good afternoon to all parents. It is an honor to have it is an honor to have a very experienced and a seasoned finance professional amongst us who can guide and throw light to all our parents on the various aspects of financial planning. A short introduction about the speaker. Mr. Solanki is a financial planning expert and has spent about 1.5 decades advising families on their well-being. After gaining experience in the corporate world, he started his own practice in 2010. Since then, he's been advising families with special needs. Dependence has been on his main focus. During his professional career, Mr. Jitendra has met numerous families having children with special needs and gained deep understanding on their personal and financial requirements. With this experience, it helped him start a specialized service for these families for assisting them in creating a secure future. With this objective, he has also created a team of professionals and started a dedicated website www.planspecialneeds.com in 2015. He is qualified from one of the premier institutes IIT in India, and he's also earned the must respected professional designation of a certified financial planner and a and chartered trust and estate planner. He is a frequent writer and a speaker at public forums, shares his views and wisdom, especially on planning for families with special need dependents through various media groups and also TV channels. Mr. Jitendra is also an author of the book Financial Planning for Families with Children with Special Needs, which is the first book in India written on this aspect. Without taking much of your time, I would like to introduce him to all of you and let us hear from him on how we can take it forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Thanks, Rekha ma'am. Thanks, Binda, for giving this opportunity. It's a very important topic and close to my heart because this is what I started with my practice and even families. There's a lot of issues surrounding special need child future, and when we talk in India, so there is less advisors who are working in this area, even looking at estate planners also. So that's where we are focusing. And today, what I'm going to present is a glimpse of what financial planning is all about. I'm going to discuss about trust and how we can do the estate planning, or how we can create that ecosystem which will help families to prepare for their child. Okay. So you can see my screen, right, Ashish?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So brief about us. So myself, Jitendra Solanki, Ashish has described what I do, and this is the book which I have written, Financial Planning for Families Having Children with Special Needs, which largely will describe today largely describes all those aspects in detail. And Dr. Shweta Solanki, she is a chief consultant with the organization. But she is a 15 years of work experience. Coming to what we are going to talk today, so we'll understand what is special, what is estate planning. Uh, we will look at 5 building blocks of special needs planning. These are the 5 aspects which you need to know, which you need to address, which will complete your planning for your child future. And we are going to take on estate planning. We're going to cover why estate planning is so important and what you can do when you are planning for your child future. Any planning starts with understanding your requirement, and when you have a special need child, though goals like buying a house, buying a car, your own retirement, but with a special need child, some of the requirements become unique, and these which as a family I need to understand first. That's where I'm going to build the basics of my financial planning. So it's because as a parent I'm planning for myself, my retirement, my old age, plus I'm going to plan for the special need child which requires a lifelong support. The regular expenses, they are dynamic, they will increase, they will decrease, they will increase. The retirement needs are much higher because it involves uh, 2 generations, one for our own and one for the special need child. Estate planning has more elements than a will. And we talk about probably our estate planning ends up when we draft a will and when a will is prepared, because then you have planned for the life after your assets are going to be distributed. With a special need child, then your estate planning starts with a will. You have much more, which I'm going to discuss in the presentation. And available resources, we'll talk about how and to plan for the fall short if you are not planning ahead. So these are some of the unique requirements apart from the traditional requirement which we all have. Now, the risk of not planning. So why I always start with this slide is that there are certain misconceptions that so the planning is complete, or we have done this document so the planning is complete. But what happens when you are not planning? So impact is that upon your death, the decision would be made for your family by others, and this is suppose appointment of guardian for children. Now, if you are not doing appointing the next legal guardian, the law will appoint it, and the way law appoints it might not what you want. How much of your estate your loved one know? So you have to decide.
Excuse me,
So
sir.
if yeah.
Sir, I think there is some issue. Your voice is getting stuck in between. It is not clear.
Okay. Okay. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I think Anal, I have to change my earphone probably. Okay.
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we were here. So how much of your estate your loved one will inherit and in what ratio? So that means if you do not, will decide that how much your legal heirs will inherit your assets, and what the law says, I'm going to discuss that also, is not with no plan in place. Then how the guardian and trustee will be able to care for financial needs, because there is financials involved. If you are not planning, then how the guardian, the person after you, how he is going to financials for the special need child lifelong care. And lastly, the money might just run out. You have with individual, the salary coming in, that's the only resource for saving. Whatever saving you are doing has to grow, the money has to grow. And if you want to give a good return with a good, for a good accumulation, you have to give it time. And so the money which you have, if you are not planning, that means you are not deciding on the asset allocation, or doing the right investment. Probably the money might just run out, fulfill the goal which you are looking at. So the risk of not planning are much higher, and that's why we say that not planning at all is a bigger risk than planning, maybe planning for something for your special need child care. As special needs planning becomes much more important. Generally, a special needs planning, this is a financial life plan for the family, and this covers three elements. It's a plan for the parents, your own retirement, your own lifetime. It should include the plan for the and it should include plan for the special need child future. And that's why I said it's a planning for two generations, your own lifetime and your family's lifetime. Now, what is a special needs planning? It's basically a roadmap where you integrate traditional planning with the unique requirement. In the beginning, I have spoken about that what unique requirements a special needs have. So when you integrate your traditional goals, your traditional requirements with those unique requirements as a family, then that gives you a complete roadmap for your future. And this roadmap will contain financial and legal strategy which will integrate child requirement with yours. So a special need planning would cover an effective financial support, and which is going to integrate your requirement with your child requirement. Formation of will, trust, guardianship, these are the major elements of special needs planning. And lastly, it defines your vision for your loved one's life. What is your vision? How do you want after you or her care should be done? So this is about special needs planning. This is what special need planning involves. Financial planning, it's not a product. You have been hearing about financial planning now because it's come so much in media or articles. You can buy, but basically a dynamic process. You lay down a process where you are meeting your life goals with efficient management of your finances. What you want to achieve is financial security for you, your child, and your family. So whatever finances you have, you lay down a process which ensures that you know very well what is your destination, what is your destination, and what are your
Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
I have unmuted. Okay. So is a process. It's a process. What I am going to talk about today of financial planning is not any product I am giving you, but I am helping you understand that how to draw this process, which will ensure that you are managing your finances more efficiently and towards your life goals. In a 6 step, if I have to do a financial planning in 6 steps, first of all is the goal setting. So you set your goals, you define what are your goals. It may be buying a car, it may be buying a house, it may be your own retirement, or any thing after retirement, whatever you want to achieve in your life. You set all those goals and identify the monetize those goals. So you identify the monetary. Now how does this goal setting helps? Goal setting gives you what is the horizon you need to achieve your goal. Now with a special needs child, the same goal setting, the way you do in your traditional planning, the goal setting can be done. But the first step in the financial planning is setting your goal destination where you have to reach. Then analyzing current financial situation. So you know very well what is your destination. Now you stand today. What are your cash flows? How much you are saving? How you are investing? So where do you stand today? What is realize your current financial situation? When you do these two steps, you come to know what are the pitfalls, what are the gaps in reaching your goals. So now pitfall can be your you might be doing less savings. Your savings are not enough. You might not have taken enough of insurance, protection of the risk. So you analyze pitfalls. Once you have set your goals and you have analyzed your current financial situation, you know very well reaching your destination. And when you analyze pitfalls, you know that these are the gaps. Then you design strategies to fulfill those. Now these strategies can be buying life insurance, buying health insurance, implementing the asset allocation strategies, asset allocation strategies. So you design strategies to meet those to fulfill these gaps. And then you plan. So once you have prepared a plan, you know very well how you are going to achieve your life goals. You implement the plan. Now how does the implement happen? So you go and buy adequate life insurance, you go and buy adequate health insurance. If your cash flows are not well, then you miss your cash flows. Similarly, you implement the investment plan. So you implement the complete financial plan, and then you put it on a review periodically to ensure. Now why this review process is important? Because once you have prepared a financial plan, you have implemented it, that the first step you have done. Now there are life changes which will come in, which will impact your finances. In a traditional planning, when we do so with your children education, the fees increases by a certain percentage. Your income might not increase. So there is all every year there's going to be change in your cash flow. You need to account financial plan.
Mr. Solanki? Sir?
The strategies accordingly. So this is a 6-step process of how you do the financial planning. Now let's talk about 5 building blocks of special needs planning. What are those 5 building blocks? And so I'm going more deep into that, how this financial planning you can achieve, what all elements you need to cover. We will look at preparing a budget, then estimating lifetime cost. So how do you estimate the lifetime care cost? For example, if as a parent I want to know what is the corpus I need to leave behind for my special child care, lifelong care, how do you estimate the corpus? The third is set goal. I spoke about setting goals. Now traditional requirement, it is easier when you have a child whose education, marriage, up till marriage you can set goals. But how do you set goal when you have a special need child requirements? Setting the safety net, what all safety net you require, and then your own retirement planning. Now these are the 5 building blocks on which the complete special need planning is based, and these are the 5 areas of special need planning which you have to address. Let me start first with budgeting. Now why budgeting is important? We all know how budgeting helps, because a budgeting help you know that how much what's coming in and what's going out, so how much money you are saving. And when you know this, then you know very well that is that saving enough or not. Now when you have a special need child, then I always say that create a separate budget for a special need child. Now you have a family budget which you have, where you know this is the income coming to the family, these are the expenses these are the expenses going on, so these we are saving as a family. But when you have a special need child, then it's important that you prepare a separate budget for special need child completely. Now this chart I'm going to show you a bit later, but creating a separate budget helps you in identifying even the lifetime care cost, which we'll see in the case study. Include all probable expenses such as support equipment cost, etc. So when you are creating a separate budget, then you can include all probable expenses. Okay. Ashish, you can see the Excel sheet.
No, we can
Okay.
see a PowerPoint slide, but the Excel sheet is not visible.
Okay, 1 second. I just. Okay, it will be clear now, right?
Yes, yes, now it is clear.
Okay, so this is the special need child expense worksheet which we have created and which we use with the families. Now, how does it help? You see, first is the living expenses, house rent, this is only which you are spending for your special child care. The day-to-day care, domestic help, driver expenses, any other expenses, child personal needs, food, outings, clothing, accessories, inclusive, so any schooling costs, any transportation, clothing, coaching, books. Similarly, cost for special equipment, if there is any now or in the future. You can have health needs, so doctor visit, therapy, all those medical care expenses which you have to do. Any social recreational cost, similarly any miscellaneous expenses. Now this is a sheet only for special need child expense, and this is how you track or you manage your special need child budget, knowing how much you are spending on a special need child care. If creating budget for first time, start with some assumptions. So it is going to happen that if you are going to start budgeting after this, then you would not be knowing how much you are exactly spending. So you will have to start with some assumptions. Just okay. Monitor expenses for few months. So whenever you start creating budget, monitor expenses for few months and bring in accuracy in the expenses. Accommodate changes in budget with life stages. As I said, there are life stages. Minority expenses can be higher when child reaches to an adult phase. Some of the expenses might reduce. So whatever changes are happening, you keep on accommodating changes in the budget with the child life stage. But it's very important that for special need child, a separate budget is created. So that was about budgeting. Now, going next further, we're going to use the same budget. How do you estimate the lifetime cost? As I said, in the beginning, I asked the question that what is the money I have to leave behind for my child, which will ensure his financials for lifelong care. So how do I estimate that corpus? How do I estimate that amount of money? The first aspect is identify all income sources. Now, if I have to say in a layman language, so first you have to identify all income, and then you have to identify all expenses. So all income sources, if you look at this chart, parents and special child income, any salary, business, rental, or any income coming in any form, government schemes, monthly pension, any other monetary benefit, any money source coming from friend, families, relatives, supports, or any other benefit which is going to come to the child now, in future, directly to the child or to the trust. So you identify all the income sources and then identify special child expenses. Expense chart I have shown earlier. That's how you identify the special child expenses, and this is where budgeting separately for the special need child is important, because then only you can identify what is the amount of money you require for his or her lifelong care. Now these are some of the factors which will have to taken into consideration. Include all probable expenses, child is minor, then include future cost which may arise. We look from the case study how this we identify, determine today's value of all expenses, and then if any expense is unclear, monitor it for few months. And yes, account for inflation. That's very important, because with special child you have healthcare expenses and the inflation for healthcare is higher, so you need to account for that inflation. And this is where I say why inflation, accounting for inflation is important, because a 20,000 expense can rise up to 1.62 lakh in 30 years even with a 7% inflation impact. So that's where when you are identifying the cost for lifetime care, this inflation impact needs to be considered. So when we do a lifetime cost estimation, there are certain assumptions we take: life expectancy of special need child, income growth, how this income is going to grow, inflation, whether we take it 7%, 10%, or we take different inflation for different factors, rate of return on corpus, how much return I am expecting, and the taxes, what are the taxes which we have to pay. So these are some assumptions we will have to take when we are estimating lifetime cost. Okay, we'll understand from the case study how this is going to work out. So I'm just taking a random case study. Vicky, 27 years old, is a special need adult. Gaurav wishes to estimate corpus required for his lifetime care. Assume that life expectancy for Vicky is going to be 70 years, and instead of taking different inflation, we take a general inflation of 7% for all the expenses. And we are assuming that the corpus is going to grow by 8%. Now, this is the same expense chart I have shown you, and this is where the expenses is calculated. So for Vicky, it's a 58,000 per month expense, which means the currently Gaurav is spending around 6.96 lakh per annum. Now there are two ways to identify this corpus. One, we take it as perpetual annuity method, and the second is inflation adjusted corpus. Why these two methods? Why not only one method? First of all, perpetual annuity method, it's quite simple. Annual income to be generated, we assume that 6.96 lakh is a perpetual income needs to be generated. So if this perpetual income have to be generated at a 3% return on the corpus required today is around 2.32 CR, which means if I have Gaurav as 2.3 crore, then he can generate a 6.96 lakh of income annually for Vicky's lifetime. Increase the return higher to 5%, the corpus required is 1.39 crore. So this is a simple perpetual annuity method. Not much of calculation has to be done. But why this method at all? As I said, it is the easiest method. Inflation is not factored in here. So I'm not factoring in inflation, how the expenses, this 6.96 lakh, how this is going to go with inflation, I'm not factoring in. But it is good to treat this as minimum corpus required. Anything below this, you are not well prepared for. This treated as bare minimum corpus which you need for your child in any situation. And if you are following this method, you need to do it every 3 to 4 years to accommodate for the inflation. And as I said, this method just helps to avoid facing a huge shortfall. If I use a perpetual annuity method, as I said, I can treat it as a bare minimum corpus. I know very well I need to leave behind at least this amount of corpus, at least. Now this is the inflation adjusted corpus where I am factoring in the inflation. So yearly expense 6.96 lakh, today age 27, so we are planning for 43 years of lifetime. Now if I take inflation of 7%, the actual corpus required is 2.47 CR. Now this is the actual corpus required, which will factor in the inflation, which will take care of Vicky's lifetime expenses. Some of the factors, as I said, these planning are based on assumptions. So these assumptions may change, and that's where the financial planning has to be reviewed periodically. So if inflation tomorrow going to change, then you have to revise your financial plan. Now here life expectancy can be higher or lower. Generally in the early years of child life, it's very difficult to estimate accurate expenses, especially in the when the child is minor, below 10 years of age, because the expenses are changing very fast, and inflation for special needs child is higher because there are healthcare expenses involved. The inflation might not be 7%; it might be at 8, 9, 10. Now you can take an inflation of 10% also and calculate the corpus. And investment returns are variable. So we have taken a fixed return of 8%, but most investment returns are variable, but still in the longer horizon, 8% is bare minimum of what we can achieve. So that's where two way of identifying your lifetime cost, and this is how you identify that what is the money I need for my child lifelong care. The third building block is setting goals. So how do you set goals when you have a special child in focus? Now, traditional goals, we know. How do we set traditional goal? Say suppose I have to buy a car after 2 years. So short term, it's a short term goal. If I have to buy a house in next 5 years, it becomes a medium term goal. Long term, so the child education is 15 years ahead. My retirement is 20, 30 years ahead. So it becomes a long term goal. It's much easier for this traditional goal to set up. Now, why this goal setting? Because when you are investing your money, it becomes easier that which avenue I should invest in for all these goals. If it's a long term goal, I might invest into equities. If it's a short term goal, I'll stick with fixed deposit. So you investing is easier. Now, how do you do this when you have a special need child requirement? Because his requirement are lifelong and regular expenses. In the same manner, you can set your special need child goal. So immediate expenses maybe for next 3 years can be termed as short term. Any expenses up to 5 to 7 years can be termed as medium term, and any expenses beyond 7 years can be termed as long term. And add any additional support, the horizon of that will tell you whether it's a long term goal or short term goal. For example, some house modification has to be done maybe after 10 years. It becomes your goals. So this way it is easier for you to accumulate money for his or her requirement, because then you can choose the right investment strategies for accumulating money when you are setting goals even for your special needs child. And this is what helps you in setting the goals, and this is a timeline. This is the basis of all our planning we do. This is the basis of knowing, understanding what is your long term requirement and what is your short term requirement. Now what we have done is that we have divided life stages of the child into 5 stages. Stage 1 is minority. So minority, I know that it's a diagnosis, early intervention, counseling, therapy, special education, special assessment. Adult living at home, the legal guardianship will come in, services support would be required. Stage 3, adult moving to an external living environment, then child adaptability, residential facilities, parents owned retirement, government benefit. Stage 4, first parent death, probate, trust administration, trustees, or second parent death, then also probate, trust this means by designing this timeline, it becomes easier for you to identify what is I have to plan in the future. You know very well that with this child life stage, this planning is coming ahead. So you know very well that if your child is still at minority, all the 4 stages you have to plan. Now if your child is in stage 3, probably stage 4 and stage 5 is what you have to plan. And when you have this timeline drawn, you have know very well also that what is the requirement at these timelines. So if when I say stage 4 first parent death, you know very well that the legal planning will be much higher. The will execution will come into picture, the probate will come into picture, the trust administration will come into picture. You know very well. So this timeline is the basis of your planning for your special child. And even the book I have written, this timeline is the basis for the complete planning aspect I have done. The building blocks 4 is the safety net. So what safety net you have to plan? And the first one is the health insurance. Firstly, you need to cover yourself adequately. And we say largely that for salaried individuals, employer insurance is not enough. because there are, you might change employment. The second, employment insurance is might not be educate. Even the current insurance, you might be getting a 3 to 5 lakh, and that might not be enough when you are covering the entire family. Insurance for special need child has many limitations today, that I agree. Still, the health insurance companies are not covering special need child as of now, but we have seen lately that they have started covering some of the disabilities, like autism have started covering. So sooner or later they will start covering others also. Then you need to create a health fund. So you have to ensure that there is an adequate funds are there in case of any health emergency, that will take care. The second is the life insurance aspect, and life insurance is one of the important aspect of your complete planning for your special child future. So identify your actual requirements. Now there are many thumb rules available in the industry. You should take 10 times of your income, you should take 10 times of your expenses, but you need to identify your actual financial requirement, which would be that if you are the sole earning member, then it's going to be your special child requirement also, the requirement for your spouse also for her lifetime. Any sibling is there, his education, his marriage, any loan liabilities are there, covering those liabilities. So you need to identify your actual requirement when you are identifying the life insurance coverage. It should cover child lifetime care cost. The lifetime cost we have estimated in the case study, the Gaurav Corpus 2.43. Now, not all families would have this amount of corpus available today. This is going to be built over the period of time. Now, what happens if something happens today? Then where this corpus will come in? That's where the life insurance helps you. It helps you in instant funding of for the child care if, as I said, something happens today. And both parents need life insurance cover. Even if one member is earning, the second parent is taking care 24/7 of special need child. And if something happens to that parent, that is it's going to be a financial loss for the survivor, because then experts would be hired, for care for the special need child, because the other member is earning. So that's where we say that both parents need life insurance cover. Even if it's a housewife, she needs a life insurance coverage, because she has been taking care of child 24/7, reducing the cost of care for special need child. If she is not there tomorrow, suddenly the cost of care would increase for the other parent. And avail only term insurance. There is no other insurance which can fulfill this requirement. Any endowment policy, any ULIP policy, or any special policy will not fulfill this requirement, because if Gaurav wants to have a 2.42, maybe a 2 CR, life insurance, any endowment policy or any other policy, the premium would be just beyond the means. It's only term insurance which can come at a cheaper cost for and getting a higher coverage. Specific policies not available today. They used to be from life insurance company, but anymore, though any kind of special policies for special need parents, they are not available today. And as I said, this life insurance can become an important estate for instant funding of the trust after you. Now, you have formed a trust for the special need financial care. You are doing savings, you are accumulating money. You have planned that this trust would be funded later through will or through any other means. But where will this money, this corpus would come from? Because you are going to accumulate maybe in next 15 years. But what happens within this 15 years? And even after 15 years, if there is a shortfall in the corpus, this life insurance become a very important tool to meet that shortfall. Disability insurance. Now this I am talking about from the parent perspective, that if any disability arises, maybe temporary or permanent, and if there is a loss of income, then there are disability insurance available which fulfill financial requirement if you are temporary or permanently disabled. And these have option of monthly payout for few years or money. But life, health, disability, These are the top 3 safety net for any special needs child family, and this should be available. This should be on the top priority. As I said, life, health, disability. Other insurances as per your requirement. If you are a business, you might need an insurance, for certain instances. Home, you might need an home insurance. Car insurance is mandatory, today, so there is no question on that. But any other, anything which you do, anything which might have a financial implication, you might have a financial loss, should be covered adequately through right insurances. Then comes the investment planning. So how do you do the investment planning? Largely investment planning, generally we do ad hoc planning. There is a product available, we buy the product. It might have a certain benefit after you, or there is any other product available because it is showing you some guaranteed return. But your investment planning also has to be proper. And when I say investment planning, that means you have to plan your investment. You do not have to do investment because there is something available, but you have to do investment with a proper planning. So you have to review your existing investment. You have to analyze that what is your risk tolerance level, based on your personal objectives, based on your financial requirements. You have to create your own investment policy. What policy would you follow for long-term investment, what for short-term investment, and then design an asset allocation strategy. Okay, why I am repeating this goal setting is, this is the basis of investment planning. How do you plan your investment? Because you define your goals into short term, medium term, and long term, and this defines your strategies. If it's a long term, I can define an asset allocation strategy where it's a mix of equity, debt, gold, or any other investment asset class. But if it's a short term investment, I know very well I have to stick to either fixed deposit, saving account, or maybe any short term product. So goal setting helps you design your investment strategies. And largely, we have been advocate of bucket investment strategy. That is, when you have, especially for the special child requirement, you can follow the bucket strategy. Create four or five buckets. Now the bucket one can be regular income for first 2 years. It has to go to a liquid investment. You can create a bucket 2 which will meet income requirement for 3 to 5 years. You can have moderate conservative investment. You can create a bucket 3 which will have meet income requirement for 6 to 10 years. Similarly, bucket 4 and bucket 5, any lump sum fund for any unexpected planned expenses. Now, when you have created this bucket, you know very well what is the investment strategy for this bucket. And add any bucket, anything which you require for, special need childcare, or for your own, maybe your after retirement, before retirement, whatever goal you set up. These bucket strategies help you choose the right investment vehicle, the right asset allocation strategies. Now the 5 building block is the retirement planning. The way you do planning for everything, your retirement also has to plan well in life. Now what it includes, what retirement planning should include: parents own retirement, the special need dependent expenses, so your special child expenses, how much corpus you require. Because when we are talking about retirement planning, we are probably looking at a situation where you are not going to work anymore. You need to accumulate money. From there on, that money, that fund is going to help you meet your post-retirement expenses. So when you want to reach toward that stage, then you have to plan well in advance. And with a special child, these are the 4 elements you have to cover: parents retirement, your own special need dependent expenses, residential needs. So where will child live? Is he going to live in the house you have built up? Is he going to live somewhere else? So that will define your retirement strategy. And lastly, the savings required. So when you are planning your retirement, identify the corpus needed at retirement. You need to identify, the way we have estimated the lifetime cost of special needs child, the similar way you have to identify what corpus you need at your retirement. And that should include the child expenses also. Evaluate probability of success. of any shortfall. Now, if your retirement goal is not met, if there is any shortfall, then what are the probabilities of that shortfall? And that will help you in knowing that you have to adjust today's cash flows if needed, because you have to accumulate enough money for your retirement. Prepare yourself for more working years. So this we say to maximize employer retirement benefit. Now, if you are a salaried individual and if you are, what are the retirement benefits? EPF, NPS, gratuity, superannuation. There are more employer retirement benefits because those help in accumulating good money for your retirement. You need to look at maximizing them, and you need to design strategies for that. Evaluate the support after retirement. So what support you're going to receive post your retirement, you need to evaluate now, and you need to look at what else I need to plan for now, because that will help you to identify that okay, this is what I need to plan in additional to that. Evaluate residential need of the child. Why I am saying is because that will tell you that how your retirement is going to be, whether you're going to remain in the same city, whether you're going to relocate. If you're going to relocate, then you have to look at options there. So based on your child residential needs, your retirement might be set. And evaluate probabilities of relocation. As I said, once you have identified, you might have to relocate. We have seen in many parent situations where they have relocated to a different city. Maybe you are living in a metro, and the expenses of metro in your post-retirement life, are not helping you anyhow. You would look at relocating maybe to a smaller city. So then you will have to evaluate all these probabilities. So your retirement planning has to be done properly and well ahead. Now, what after you? So what happens after you? There are, okay, I'll talk on this more on estate planning, on what after you, and this is the next safety net. We have spoken about all safety net. Then you have to complete the estate plan. An estate plan is identifying child residential needs, because that is going to tell you what legal framework you have to draw, writing a will, living will, appointing future guardian trustees, creating trust for your child, obtain legal guardianship when necessary, writing a letter of intent. A letter of guardianship, it may or may not be required, but this is I would say the elements of estate planning which you have to prepare, and this is also the safety net which I have spoken about earlier, which you need to create, which is going to ensure that both financial and personal needs of special needs child is being taken care. And yes, provision for your old age, you cannot leave it, because what happens when you reaches to your old age, you are no more in a situation where you can take decisions physically. You might require some support also in your old age for managing your financial, how you're going to address that. So you need to complete, and that estate plan is going to be only completed when you have also done provision for your old age also. So this is the complete estate plan you have to prepare. So take a special needs planning approach. Don't take an ad hoc approach. Don't take any other approach. Now, what is a special needs approach? Address issues. The issues, how you will get those when you draw the timeline which I shown earlier. Draw the timeline of your special needs child life stages, and you will come to know what issues are going to come in the future. Identify resources. What resources you have, identify them. Estimate cost of all the requirements you have. Bring them into monetary requirement. Don't just leave it as a goal. If you have identified any goal, bring monetary requirements for that. Choose professional. Choose the right professional. Choose professional. Don't plan everything through your if you have expertise, well and good, but if you don't, then choose professionals. Create this plan. Create a plan. Don't just have this plan in the mind. Unless and until you bring it in the document, you won't be able to visualize what is there in the planning. Execute the legal plan. If you have worked out something, if you know this is the legal framework I have to create, execute that legal plan, because unless and until it is not executed, that legal framework is not in place. Prepare letter of intent. This is in fact the first document which I say to any family, that what is the first document you have to create. and that is the letter of intent. I'm going to discuss about it and monitor and update plan. Now, this is the special needs planning approach which you should be taking. Okay, estate planning, what after us? So this was about financial planning, largely covering how financial planning is done, what elements are covered, how you should go about it. So we have done how to estimate the cost. Okay, we are now discussing the estate planning aspect. What after us? So what are the legal framework which you need to create and how you should plan your estate? First of all, why estate planning is required? Maximizing inheritance designated to heirs. So whatever inheritance you are going to leave behind. When I say maximization, so there are going to be liabilities, there are going to be other costs which might you might leave behind. So you need to maximize inheritance. There might be taxes coming in. So the maximizing inheritance designated to heirs. Addressing estate taxes and expenses. Estate taxes is not there in India, but if it does come, then you have to need to address them also. Review testamentary instrument. Testamentary is will is a testamentary instrument. So you need to review it periodically if any changes is required. Beneficiary designation, another document. Who are the beneficiaries in your financial assets? So you need to look at those beneficiary designation from the perspective of what the the estate planning laws
Excuse
are
me,
there.
sir.
Determining that yes.
Excuse
Yes.
me, sir. Sir, is there a possibility that you can switch your internet, because we've not been able to hear you very clearly in this slide particularly?
In this slide,
Yeah.
okay, let me see. No, my internet is working fine. Okay, I'll be a bit louder more probably. Abhi, the voice is coming clear?
Sir, it is getting stuck in between.
1 second, just give me a second. Okay, just give me a second.
Yes.
I might change my internet connection then. Okay, 1 second. Now it's clear, Ashish?
Perfect, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I was talking about why estate planning. So determining guardianship of children. So you need to appoint the next legal guardian. The law provision that who's going to be the legal guardian after you. If you do not appoint, then the court proceeding would be required to legal guardian. Distribute asset to beneficiaries. You need to distribute asset to beneficiaries, but you need to plan it out in certain manner. When you are doing an estate planning, so how you're going to distribute asset, what amount of asset should go to which beneficiary, like your special need child, know that he or she requires more amount of money, so you need to plan the distribution. Manage estate assets, so you might have lot amount of properties, states, you need to manage it, so you require an estate planning approach to create the right framework. Estate planning, so what are the estate planning options you have? First, distribute asset to sibling or a family member for special need benefit. That is the one option you have, that giving asset to the sibling or the family member who will ensure the special need lifelong care. Bequest with asset directly, and it is going to be managed by the legal guardian. That is another option. The third option is establish a special need trust. That's a third. And fourth option is distribute asset to the institution for benefit of special need child care. Now these are the 4 estate planning options for you when you have a special need care. Now all these options have their pros and cons. Now when you are preparing your estate plan, you need to look at whether which of these are going to work for your family requirement, and whichever options works well, then you need to prepare accommodate in your estate plan. Tools of estate planning. What are the tools which complete your estate planning? Will, living, guardianship, and letter of intent. Now, what are the element of estate planning when you are planning your estate? First is parents or legal guardian, specially dependent. Where this insurance planning is coming for the funding of the or funding for the special need child care. Investment strategy, how much corpus is required, how the growth of that corpus will happen, capital security, monthly income to be generated afterwards, income tax and trust laws. Funding special need care now, or you're going to accumulate, where will this instant funding come to create this corpus? So what tools, what strategies, what investment avenues you will utilize to create this corpus. And then setting up an oversight mechanism. Oversight, who is going to oversee the affairs? A protector or a guardian? How this reporting mechanism will bias, investment reports, or any other. Now these are the elements of estate planning which you have to address when you are preparing a complete estate plan. The first element is letter of intent. Now it's not a legal document, but okay. When generally question to families that if you are going to say, so if you are going to leave your child to some neighbor for 4 years, what instruction you are going to give to that neighbor? Extend to this, if you need to leave child maybe for 48 hours, what instruction will you give to them? And extend it to more, if you have to tell to somebody else, the next legal guardian, can you give these total life instruction to him? What document you can create to intent serve this purpose? It becomes a letter of instruction for the next legal guardian and trustees. What are the what is of intent? Family. It will have details about members, history of family members. It will have a living daily routine of child, habits, clothes and foods, your vision for the lifestyle of child you want, residential living, current residence, what is not going to work for the child, healthcare, similarly, medication, therapies, hospital visit, what did not work, social activities, vacations, extracurricular activities, education, any special schools, any special classes or vocational courses, religious places of interest, love of the child, and final arrangement. If you look at this picture, the letter of intent largely covers the complete life of your child, and that's where resource for anybody who will after you will take care of the child. And that's where I ask this question, that if you have to leave your child sense, what instruction you can give to him or her. This letter of intent serves the same purpose. That's why if you ask me today what is the first you create, then letter of intent is the first document you should create. Okay, will writing, I'll probably here I'll just finish slide. Right. Okay, now coming to this question, why will is important? Now, first of all, what if you die intestate? Intestate we mean what if you die without a will? Now, there is a Hindu Succession Act which says that if you do not have a will, your assets simply get distributed equally between the legal heirs. Now, The first line in Hindu would be mother, wife, and children. So whatever your assets are, it gets equally distributed. Now that's not what you want, because you might have created a trust. You want the money should go to the trust for the special need child. More money should go to that trust, and the rest to be distributed. It happen if you have a will, because the law does not define any provision for a trust, and it does not define any unequal distribution. It's the equal distribution legal hires. So why writing a will? Avoid dying intestate. What if simultaneous death happens, asset go? Designate executor and trustees. Designate guardian for minor children. Create provision for minors. So you need coordinating guardians of minor children. You need to do it through will. Specific bequest. Any for special need child you want to leave behind more marital assets. So probate is a legal process where a certificate. Generally, there are some states where probate is mandatory, like Maharashtra, Chennai, and your West Bengal. The probate is that the will generally go to a court, and through court proceeding, the court certifies the legal character of the person to whom the grant is made. It's a minimum 6-month process, and until this probate process, the will cannot be executed. It's only after court issue a certificate the will be executed. Now, there are certain other situations where a probate may happen mandatory by law. As I said, if any executor or legatee is establishing any legal probate is necessary. So we have seen all those disputes in the will go to the court. It's actually the probate process. If there is no executor in the will, then required. The deceased has multiple assets, then the probate might be required. So there are situations where probate may be required. Now, why I'm mentioning the probate? Because the will won't get executed till the probate process is completed. What happens to the financial you will leave behind through the will? That's where the legal framework of a trust structure can come in, because the trust can manage the special need care till this will process or will probate process is completed. We will look at that trust structure. So will writing, what points to consider when you are mention disability of the child, appoint guardian for your child, who is going to be the next legal guardian after you, appoint caretaker if different from guardians, appoint them in your will, provision of asset distribution to the trust and to the remaining members, how and to what extent it is going to be distributed. Other will, if you have written, maybe you are an NRI, maybe working in defense, we should mention it. And provision of funds paying expenses for child, any be incurred during the child transportation or caretaker expenses, how they are going to be met and from which asset you need to cover. So will that it covers all the provision, and especially the trust funding can come only through will writing, otherwise the trust funding won't happen. So I'm going to talk about a bit more about trust, why and trust is required and how. So fundamental, generally there are 4 parties to a trust. So first is the author, settler, the person who transfers the property to the trust, trustee, the person responsible. You as a parent, when you are you are creating the trust and you are transferring the property, you are the settler. Trustee is the person who manage the trust. They are not the settler. They don't own the assets. Their role is only to manage the trust. Beneficiary is going to be a child, the person for whose benefit is created. And trust property, the property you are going to transfer to the trust. These are 4 fundamental on which the trust structure is based. So you have a revocable trust, irrevocable, and testamentary. Testamentary is when you create it through a will. So not creating today, but in the will you mention it that trust should be created and the asset should be transferred to the trust. Then you can create a revocable and irrevocable. The difference between these two is that you can revoke the trust at any time. Asset ownership generally remain unchanged. It is not treated as trust. Income of trust is tax exempt. So whatever income you derive from it, it is going to be treated as your income only. And generally it is when you are multiple assets, or there is a situation that you are not clear whether you might want to change the trust content, the trust details. So then you create a revocable trust. Irrevocable is once you create a trust, irrevocable trust, you cannot revoke it back. Assets one transfer to the become property of the trust. Not even you as a settler can claim those trusts. And beneficial, yes, for special children family, it might be the best option. But as I said, if situations are unclear, you are not sure, then revocable trust might be a good option. So we are largely talking about private trust because there are two trusts, public and private. Public are all those charitable trusts and public trust because there is no individual beneficiary. In a private family trust, only individual is the beneficiary. It can be you, it can be child, any other member of your family. So it is, that's why it is called a family private trust. Specific is where the beneficiary and the share is clearly defined. So because your every income is going to special need child, so it is becomes a specific trust. Discretionary, where the share of income is not defined and distribution is generally left to the trustee. So trustees decide how much income to be distributed to all the beneficiaries. Now, what is the benefit of trust structure? Why am I advocating this? First, there is no restriction on settlers or those who can create the trust. Parents, legal guardian or grandparents, all three of them can create the trust structure. There are no standard terms. A private family trust does not have a standard terms. You create your own terms as per what you want from this trust to be achieved. It's a separate legal entity in the eyes of law. Once you created a trust, it's a separate legal entity. And once assets are transferred to a trust, not even creditors can claim on this trust. Once after creating the trust, you take up any liabilities or anything else, then the trust in a way. It does not go through a probate process. That's where, as I said, if you have a will, then probably will is going for a probate, the assets get, but a trust does not go through the process. Till that time, the trust can ensure the continuity of management of child financial affairs. Trust can appoint initial trustees. You as a parent creating that initial trust, you can appoint who's going to be the next trustee. And a trust, the beneficiary. So trust does not have any other objective. Whoever are the trustees, their sole objective is that they are going to work for only for the beneficiary. Most importantly, if you have created a trust, your family members knows very clearly what is the objective being achieved from that. So it generally any conflict among family members. Now coming to role of a trustee is supposed to make a decision for entity under its authorization. That means they are going to work only for the trust. They will see how the finances has to be managed. They will see how the sustainability of the coil, and they will look at that how this provision can be objective can be met. It's a legal relationship between trustee and the party. So trustee is a legal, and trustee are not supposed to make any profit for themselves. So any resources of the trust they can utilize only for the trust objective. That is role of a. Now who can be a trustee? First depends on the specific issues, but anybody can be a trustee. It can be a friend, it can be a corporate company, a combination of individual and corporate fiduciary serving together. So trustee can be anybody. There is no guidelines as to that who can. It can be anybody, any person who is competent to contract. NRIs are difficult to appoint them as a trustee. Also because there are laws which says that if somebody if a trustee 6 months apart, he has to be replaced. But a protector which can come in, if you have any family member or as an NRI, you still want them to include in the trust structure. Now when you are identifying trustees of a trust, you also need to look at certain qualities because they are going to manage a legal entity. They are going to achieve certain objectives. Trustees should know how to manage. He's not supposed to know how to manage the fund, how to look at accounts, or he should be a knowledgeable on technology. He should supposed to know that how to hire the right professionals. He should be knowing how to manage relationship, sensitive to your child, relationship with other professionals, avoid any conflict, no profiting from the trust, beneficiary care, top priority. Why this question comes in? Because when you look at a member, friend, or anybody as a trustee, you need to look at certain qualities, because trust he is going to serve a role, and these are certain qualities which you can look at. Individual versus corporate. So individual, maybe in experience, will have to understand the role first. So any family member you think of appointing a trustee, even as a parent, you might not be knowing how the trust functions if you become a trustee. So you will have to understand corporate, professional trustee you are appointing, maybe experience in managing a trust, understand fully the role of a trustee. Prefer family, friends and relatives, but assess how much they know about the trustee role, and you can make them understand this is how trust functions by making them as a co-trustee. How does it help? It helps that you also come to know whether they can play the role of a trustee. They also understand this is the amount of work, or this is what I have to do playing the role of a trustee. Professional trustees, as I said, are generally professional bodies, corporate organizations whose is to serve as a professional trustee in your trust and work for the interest of the beneficiary. They will uh, look at day-to-day functions of the trust, assets, and distribution of income to the beneficiaries. They generally, any professional trustee will charge a conduct is building a position of trustee, and not even professional trustees. Even I say that any family member or a friend serving a legal role for their lifetime, look at some remuneration from this role, because it's a legal responsibility. Advantages. Their trustees are usually well acquainted with trustee duties, assisting in all the trust, meeting their obligations, trustee to all the beneficiaries of our trust. So generally, when you appoint trustee, you get that experience who knows very well that how to manage a trust. Advantage is that the continuity of managing a trust is there with the professional trustees, because if it's a company, they're going to manage the trust till they are there. The representative might change, but the professional trustee would be there. So that continuity of trust affairs would be there. Otherwise, even if you appoint any individual, the next question will always come in, what after him? So the continuity has to be answered identifying the trustees. Taxation. How does a private trust is taxed? Generally, income of a trust is assessable upon trustees in their representative capacity. Now, okay, whatever the trust trust earns an income is considered the beneficiary. Trust does not have any income of its own. All the income is considered to be income of the beneficiary, and that's why the trust, a private family trust, tax at the beneficiary level. That because the income is going to add to the income of the beneficiary and going to be taxed at the beneficiary income tax. There are some situations where the trust might be taxed at maximum rate of say 30%, but largely if in a specific trust is going to tax the beneficiary income only and tax at beneficiary tax rate. Now it can be assessed as a beneficiary or payable as a representative assessee, but the income is considered to be the beneficiary income. Clubbing income, this is one of the benefit which largely comes to the private trust also. Now, under the income tax provision, if the child is, in general cases, the child is minor, all the income which is arising to the minor is get clubbed with the income of the parent. In case of, if the special child is a minor, then the income does not get clubbed with the parent, but treated as his or her income separately. Which means from the income tax benefit also, if you have a special child, if you are under a higher tax slab, if you gift the special child, then you can create a separate tax file in his or her name, even when the child is minor, because the clubbing of income provision won't apply. apply. Same happens in the private trust. Right when the child is minor, the income from assets arising in the trust. So because it is a deferred, so the clubbing of income provision does not apply. So the under section 64(1), the income does not get clubbed with the parent, which is a major benefit of creating a private trust. Otherwise, under a private trust provision, even the it get clubbed with the income of the settler. But this benefit is available for the private trust. Okay, so that was about private trust and the income tax perspective. I have not gone much into detail, but largely covered to be taxed. Now, how to fund the trust? You have created a trust, you have created a structure, but how to fund this trust? Where the money would come from? Largely, first of all, identifying the cost, lifetime cost, because that is the money you need to fund the trust with. Adding some trust. So if Gaurav estimated 2.4 CR, probably he might have to fund the trust with around, we say, 2.6 CR or 2.7 CR, taking the running cost of the trust, which might happen in the initial years. So this estimation is important to identify how much the trust, the money requires, how you are going to fund this trust. What are the cost factors in trust? I spoken how much is needed, current cost of care. So all that calculation you do, which I have shown in the case study, to come to a conclusion that money you have fund the trust with. Now, what are the costs in a trust? Costs involved. Generally, there are three levels of cost which are involved in trust. First is the investment, that is managing the corpus where the investment money is going to be invested. Trust administration cost. So trust administration, day-to-day affairs, that will come. Any specific to child care might also come as a cost factor for a private trust. So this is how the elements are there. Trust administration. So monthly, quarterly, half yearly, yearly, fund received by the trust, managing distribution to beneficiary, managing account of the trust, investment management, managing trust corpus, custodian, managing records, any other services like ITR filing, managing properties which are there for rental income or appreciation. These elements are there for a trust, and this cost has to be identified and taken into consideration when you are funding for the trust. So I'm just giving a case study. How do you look at? Now we have identified the this. So if you look at Vicky's age today, 5 years, life expectancy 75, so lifetime years 70. So this you can calculate the corpus. Now total years expenses to be planned. Vicky's care yearly expenses 4,62,000. We have added the trust administration cost, income tax, other expenses. So the yearly expenses to be planned study is 5.52, not 4.62. And when you plan for 5.52, maybe planning for 70 years, the 2.85 CR is the corpus. Only the child care corpus, but some additional cost which you have to prepare for. Funding sources, where would this fund will come from? You can have existing asset gifted to the trust, and the gifting tax of individuals apply. Life insurance becomes estate planning tool, and as I said, it's one of the important tool for any special need child family, because this is going to fund life. Only life insurance only can help you buy the high amount of insurance coverage with a lower cost. So that gap you need life insurance meet you. And we are standing today, we have now term in life insurance product developed where you can buy 100 years of age. So the life insurance can cover you up to 100 years of age, which means I can consider this life insurance for my lifetime. Anywhere in my gap, this life insurance can meet. So it becomes one of the important funding sources for trust also. How to form a trust? How do you do it? What are the steps? First is list down the objectives. What what objective special need child can be one. You can look at your old age also, same can also be covered, right? So whatever objective had to be meet down, you need to list down those objectives. Step 2, decide the structure of the trust. You want revocable, irrevocable, what structure? Decide who will be the settlers, trustees, beneficiaries. So both parents will be settlers or one parent will be settler. Who are going to be the trustees and who are going to be the beneficiaries? All three, you need to decide that. Step 4, decide when the asset is going to be transferred to the trust and when. In your living or through will, how you're going to structure. If you have decided everything, translate this intention into a trust deed. Then you draft the trust deed and then you register the trust deed to form the family trust. Once this is registered, your trust structure in place, and now you can work towards funding of the trust. Okay, I'll just take 2-4 minutes. The next is guardianship. So there are 4 ways through which legal guardianship generally sets up. One is the National Trust Act 1999, being settled and special need child is reaches 18 years of age. So if you have your child is so by law the parents are considered natural guardian only of age. Once the child attains 18 years, you have to seek the legal guardianship to continue making decision on their behalf. So this National Trust bodies to avoid going through court process to seek guardianship, but it's not mandatory by law. So there are other provisions through which the can be set up. Even a trust setup can also have a provision for guardianship and it is legally valid. Then there are other options like you can testament, where you set up the next legal guardian through will, and at any age, even for minority also. So what who is going to be the guardian after the parents, you set up it. And through Indian code, then any of the provision required. There are certain situations when the legal guardian is seek through the Indian code. So these are the 4 options of legal seeking legal guardianship. At some point of time, the legal of testamentary and national trust will always come into picture. So you will have to take into consideration. Cover this. Okay, I'm going to take up this case study just to explain how the trust helps to set up that ecosystem special child care. Now, I'll explain you through this case study. So, Vicky, 27 years old, is a special need adult. Gaurav is to estimate average inflation of 7%, life expectancy to be 70 years, assuming a growth of 8% on the corpus. This is the same case study, 6.96. So yearly expense 6.96 lakh. The total corpus required today by Gaurav is 2.47 crore. Now this is if you take inflation separately. Now here I have tried to taken inflation separately for healthcare expenses separately, living expenses separately. The cost reaches to 2.65 cr. Okay, so that's where the inflation impact is. So you have to decide how you want to take inflation. Now corpus for the trust is, as this case study, 6.96 is Vicky's yearly expense. Total yearly we have taken 50,000, income tax, other expenses, another 40,000. 90,000 is the additional yearly expense we have to plan for. So total yearly expense 7.86. Then the corpus required to fund the trust is 2.79 cr instead of 2.4 cr, which is only for Vicky's yearly expense. So how this trust, Gaurav can form this trust, how this ecosystem, what is meant by ecosystem? means you are getting a structure that private trust is going to work along with legal guardian, along with institution, along with other stakeholders, that the special need care financially and personally both are being met. So Gaurav has a younger brother whom he has appointed as a legal guardian, form the trust to safeguard the assets. Vicky may reside in a residential center post Gaurav lifetime. So we are taking this under this case study. Now this ecosystem which is created. So if you look at Vicky family trust is created. The Gaurav and spouse are the initial trustees. So they appoint future and after them who are going to be the trustees, they appoint them. They set up terms and condition of the trust which they have laid down very clearly, and they have appointed a guardian who is going to manage the Vicky's care post Gaurav lifetime. There are professional trustees who are appointed now. They will manage the day-to-day affairs, and the funding of the trust has been managed through investment, life insurance, and other gifts. So within lifetime and some through will. So that's where the funding is. Now this family trust is going to work with service providers, is going to work with institution, and is going to work with guardian to how it's going to do. So it's going to set up review process, is going to set up contracts with service providers who are going to services for Vicky's care. Now it can be either that one institution can be the service provider, or it might happen that provider might be different and institution might be different. So whatever way it is being decided, the private trust is going to work with them, the service providers. They will sign the contract, and when there is a legal guardian who is managing the personal affairs, the trust is going to pass on information to the legal guardian. The legal work with the trust, passing on information, what is the amount of money required periodically. So that way this ecosystem will help that the private working with all the stakeholders of special need care, ensuring that the financials, first of all, they are there, assets are protected, the care is being managed, because the trust is being setting up the periodic review processes by hiring professionals, setting up contract for receiving special services, and the other stakeholders are ensuring that the amount of funding, the information is being passed on to the private trust periodic, help them to for deciding on the sustainability of the corpus, knowing that this is the amount of money required. So this is an ecosystem kind of structure you create through a private family trust. That's the advantage of a trust structure you have. Myth and concern about estate planning. Now these are generally we have seen, largely in the individual families, things are under control as of now. Will take care of all the needs of the child after me. There are others, brother, sister, who will take care of the child. Will writing estate planning is complex, complicated. Can't find the right people to trust my child and asset. Still have time, will do estate planning during my. So these are some of the myth which probably you need to enjoy. These are only myth. Estate planning, unless and until it is done properly, unless and until it is you have the right framework created, it's very difficult to secure future, because whatever structure you choose, whatever you decide, you need to understand the pros and cons of it, like not for 1 year, 2 year, for the complete lifetime. And as I said, the benefit of a private trust is, as I've shown in the last slide, is creating that ecosystem that the child care is being addressed for the lifelong, and all the stakeholders are there together, ensuring the care of the for his or her lifetime. As an organization, we are helping families right from creating financial plan, creating an estate plan for families, and assisting in formation of will, trust. We are creating that roadmap, helping them out, knowing the financial requirement, also advising and managing assets. We are assisting the trust also, the trustees also, in the capacity of an advisor, and we are launching our own professional trusteeship services. This is a life plan system which we created, which largely form the basis of our planning for the family, which covers the 6 major elements surrounding the special need child life. A life care plan life stages, the timeline I have shown, how to, understanding those life stages and what are the issues to be addressed, transition plan, minority to at home external environment, moving to other states, moving to other countries, what issues are going to be addressed during these transition phases, special need financial plan, creating that financial plan, creating an estate plan and working on the legal documents, communication plan, drafting that letter of intent. So we run our own e-courses, your template, and we help you write question by question that complete that letter of intent. So this is a life plan system we created, working towards creating that complete ecosystem which we have just spoken about. Our vision is very clear. We are very clear. We want to be the most special in this country, and we are going to assist not only at the initial stage, but we are going to end, working towards creating this, bringing security and independence. That's all as far as this presentation goes. We'll take a question now, and these are my credentials. So planspecialneed.com is our organization. You can reach me at my mobile or email, and I'll be happy to answer your queries later on after this webinar.
Thank you so much, sir, for this power pack session. And with this power pack session, my inbox is also full of all queries. So we'll take up your time and let's see how many can we address
Sure.
them today. So the first question is, how simple is it to create a will and does it have to be registered?
Will is quite simple. Okay, it just that it has to be clear. It has to be written in a plain, simple paper, on paper. Okay, but largely because you have a special need child, you might create a provision for funding of the trust through it, take a professional help so that the contents are covered clearly. As far as registration is concerned, will registration is not mandatory by law. It doesn't say you have to register a will. Even will written on a plain paper also is considered a valid will. But what's happening is that will written on a plain, some institution has been demanding that if you have such a will, kindly get a probate of that will. Okay, so it's better to get the will registered, and to register the trust, it's good to have the will registered also. It just brings an authenticity to the will.
Can our kids operate bank accounts and hold mutual fund and shares even on their own after they attain maturity?
Okay, see, the laws, if your kids are able to make decisions on their own, okay, if they understand how to manage this mutual fund, if they understand to manage this fund lying in the bank account, then they can operate it. If they do not, I would advise they won't be able to operate it. I might say, do it on a thumb impression. If he can sign, fine. Largely, to me, no, better to have it operated by a legal guardian.
Okay. Can property and assets be purchased in the name of our kids?
Yes, it can be purchased. In fact, there are certain, one is quota is also there, certain concession is also there when you purchase a property in your kid's name.
Can we do business in the name of our kids? Is there a process to go for a loan?
Yes, you can do a business in the name of your kid. In fact, through government, there are some schemes running where you get loan for such a business at a concessional rate. Okay, so there are some benefits available as far as interest rate on that loan is considered. I think it's available on Ministry of Social Welfare. The information of that scheme you will get. So you can run a business. There is no legal foundation on that.
Okay. The next question is, how do we ensure that what is planned is executed well? So the question of the parent was that I appoint you as a trustee or a manager for my kid to ensure that the amount coming from the corpus is being spent for him. Now, how do we ensure that that is happening well, or is there a process that we take 2 or 3 people in the thing and do it with a majority case? How do we do that?
Okay, yes. So when you are creating a private trust, the you require is 2. There is no limit on maximum. So probably you can create 3 people as trustees. There can be a professional trustee, there can be a family, there can be somebody from an institution side or anybody else, right, who would be stakeholder in decision making. And all 3, then the terms of the trust you can set up, how the decision making is going to be done, how the bank accounts can be operated. So you can create a layer of security within the trust will ensure that the funds are protected and the decision making is not left to any one individual.
Okay. Thank you. Next, the government, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Ministry of Finance, there are no such schemes for additional interest like you have for senior citizens. In the National Trust also, there is no such scheme. Even LIC, banks, post office don't have such social security schemes. Bank interest rates have also gradually fallen down over the last 10 years. Your suggestions in the absence of above, what are the better options?
Okay, as far as special families are considered, yes, I do agree. There are no special benefits available. There are no special insurance scheme. There are no special, children's scheme. We would love to have that. Like you have a scheme for, girl child Sukanya Samriddhi. There should be something like that. You do not have anything like that. I think, as I said, investment planning is a very, I would say, as a family member, if you are not aware about no much of investment planning is a complex area, because there is no such one product available where I can invest my money and achieve all my objective. It's actually assets you have to choose, then you can create a good investment portfolio. So I would advise seek a professional help, because I cannot name any single product where you can get everything. So there are different fixed income products, they achieve different objectives, the risk and return would vary. There are certain other asset classes, gold, equity, real estate. You need to understand the pros and cons of them, and then you need to create an investment portfolio. But largely you will have to look at combination classes, then only you can achieve a good investment returns.
I have deposited for Muthoot FinCorp FD rates because they are better, and now NCD because it is backed up against gold reserves. Your suggestions regarding the security and safety?
Okay, so corporate fixed deposit, yes, there are risk factors. Though, first of all, you need to look at companies past. How is the company financial? It is, there are certain ratings assigned to these companies, but you don't have to blindly follow the ratings. You look at financials of these to decide whether the investing into this is going to be a safer than other instrument. See, corporate fixed deposit, there is always an element of risk involved, and that is a credit risk, whether the company can default tomorrow or not. It's very difficult to say to any company that it might not default in the past 3-4 years. We have seen good AAA rating companies defaulting, and in this COVID situation we do not know what's going to happen. Even if you are investing into this, please do not expose a great amount of money to this. Have a very limited exposure, maybe 10-50 of your portfolio, limited extend to that, not go beyond that. More than that, you invest in a more liquid investment. These risks are probably addressed. So even if you are investing, first of all you need to analyze well. I would not comment on a single company as of that. Is a part of analysis you have to be done. But yes, if it's a good rated, maybe a company like HDFC Limited, it's a good group. Okay, so those fixed deposits are considered safer than that. But then any company which is good, which is safer, would not give you higher returns. So these returns and risk work at tandem with each other. High risk, high return; lower risk, lower return. Take into consideration and then invest.
Related question, SEBI certified that deposits is against gold reserves for these gold gel relating companies. So your suggestions whether they are safe?
Which one? Which one? Sorry, I didn't get you.
So there are companies which which have taken deposits from public against gold reserves, which is certified by SEBI. Your suggestions regarding the safety and security?
Uh, Safety and security is, see, any corporate, I would say any corporate company, anything you are investing with any company, which is a private, company, the default risk is always there. You cannot neglect it. There is risk in any company, that is always there. It can be lower or higher based on, group, or based on, how the past, but do consider that any company you take an exposure into in their deposit or anything else, there is an element of credit risk. Now it might come, even in good companies, it might come in difficult situation like today we are sitting in COVID-19. We do not know, even good companies can default on certain aspect, because the situation is such. So corporates, investing, and that's why I say, even if you are investing, don't expose a higher amount towards that. Limit your exposure, because generally what happens is, in the expectation of higher return, we invest, more money towards it. Limit your exposure, so that even if it's, the risk is there, and consider this as a risk, that okay, the money is invested, if this risk is there, fine, I am okay with it. So the risk is involved. I cannot say today that the, even if it's a SEBI registered company also is there, the business might be there. If it's a, company, the risk is always going to be there. So you have to take that risk into consideration when you are investing your money.
I am a single earning parent having income of 50,000 rupees. How much money percentage should be saved for the planning that you have been sharing in the case study?
Okay. So generally there is a, defined formula, or thumb rule, some, define that how much money you should be saving. As of now, it's very difficult, unless and until you estimate what is the amount of corpus required. Okay, you won't be able to estimate what required. But largely, whatever life stage you are, your savings for your long-term goal should not go below 25%.
Okay.
That means 25% of your income you should be saving for your long-term goals. Then only you can achieve your. If it's 10-15%, it's an alarming situation, because you not be able to accumulate. 25%, keep that benchmark, that at least that much amount of money you have to save. If you are able to save 30-40%, I think you are working very well.
Please specify the name and details of the insurance who cover our kids.
Okay, so that's a probably, a drawback, because as of now, insurances companies is covering. Okay, so that's a big drawback. They haven't, in fact, even other disabilities also they have covering. It's only lately they have started covering only autism. They haven't gone to other disabilities yet. Only 2 companies have started it. Otherwise, companies are not permanently excluded. They are permanently excluding individuals with any kind of these, disabilities. So as of under any health insurance scheme.
Okay. What is the difference between a letter of intent and a will? Does a letter of intent have to be registered?
Okay. Okay. So a will is a legal document, and will specifies your wish for your asset distribution to your family members at your death. It's get executed at your death. Letter of intent, contrary to this, it's not a legal document, not to be registered, not done anything. Letter of intent is an instruction you are giving to the next legal guardian about your child, that this is life of my child, this is the way my child about daily life, and details of all the professionals, details of what hasn't worked with the child. We have tried it, it didn't work. So it's an instruction to next legal guardian that this is what you should do in this kind of situation. And if in the next legal any information, for example, the next legal guardian, whoever you appoint, he wants to go to the family doctor where that information would be, and wants to know about anything about special, your special needs child. So where that information will be. So letter of intent is an information for the next legal guardian. It's not a legal document, but a very good information resource for knowing anything about your child life.
Thank you. Oh, what happens in case an appointed trustee passes away?
So if an appointed trustee passes away, the survivor trustee has to appoint the next trustee. So if it's two trustees, one trustee passes away, then another trustee has to be appointed. If there are three trustees, one trustee passes away, the trust can still function because minimum two trustees are required.
Okay. Sir, do you have a formula to make it easier for parents of kids for special needs? Like a case study with two kids, one is a typical child and one is a special child.
Okay, so we have done planning for families where one child is a special child and sibling, and we have been doing the planning for such families also. Uh, so I mean, as of now, though, the case study would be we discuss how these things can be done. Financial planning would largely be the same. On the yes, your estate planning would vary because now you are sibling to support. So the some of the things get addressed when you have a sibling to support. Then from the estate planning perspective, managing trust affairs or anything, you probably looking at different perspective than other parents who have a single child as a special need child. So I mean, we have been sharing these case studies. I'll share some case studies, of such families, and will help to understand more that how exactly planning can be done.
Okay. I have a child who's 3 years old and he's the only child. How do we start?
Okay. So, as I said, start with letter of intent. That's the first document, right? Probably you have not gone to that stage where you can understand how the behaviors develop because he's just 3 years old. Generally when the child reaches 10, 11 years of age, then you are you understand more about your child writing to letter of intent. But still I'll say start with letter of intent, create it, okay, have that resource, and then start with the financial planning. See, financial planning addresses a lot of issues for you. It helps you understand more about. Through that financial planning, you come to know what other issues I have addressed in the future, and then you take it from there. So I would say start with financial planning and then move forward.
Which authority registers the special trust or a private trust? Who oversees proper functioning and monitors or regulates the defaults?
Sorry, come again on that question.
Which authority registers a trust?
Okay.
And who oversees the proper functioning and monitors or regulates the defaults in case?
Okay. So as far as registration goes, private trust is registered in the sub-registrar office, same where will and property get registered in your local sub-registrar office. That's where private trust is also going to get registered. There is no monitoring authority for a private trust. Anything related to private trust are dealt in Indian code. So anything wrong in the trust which is happening, the matter has to be taken. Now, because a private family trust does not have a standard terms and condition, so the most important aspect is drafting of the trust deed, provision you are carrying in the trust deed. That's where you will create all the layer of securities which the trust will require. And as I said, by involving the stakeholders, professional trustees, institutions or family members, even a family member is an NRI, you can involve as a by involving all these stakeholders, you can still create a layer of security. But there is no monitoring authority as such. But yes, with your special, anybody can go to the trust or to the court and complain against anything wrong which is happening in the trust. Even a legal guardian can go, you can go if anything wrong is happening with respect to the trust. But as I said, it all depends on, comes to the formation of the trust deed, how you are doing that, what you are creating. That's where all these layer of securities are being built.
Okay. What are the pros and cons of dividing a property between special need kids and other siblings?
pros and cons is that first of all, the special need kid is not going to be able to make decision. Okay, he won't be able to make any decision, because if he requires a support, if he requires a legal guardian to make any decision, then you know uh, dividing the property in, between a sibling and a special need child. See, it will come to personal understanding rather than, legally. You might do it. The legal guardian might take the decision of what to do of the property, right? But it's between understanding between the families. So if you are very sure that the understanding will always remain, there is no, right, the legal complication might not be there, because there is going to be legal guardian. The child is not going to make any decision. He won't be able to make any decision with respect to the property. It's the legal guardian who will make the decision. Now, with respect to that, can after you any next legal guardian, can there be, any dispute which will arise between the sibling and the guardian? That, it is very difficult to answer.
Okay. I have taken a Sukanya Samriddhi scheme without adding it under a trust or any information about my child's condition to the bank. After the child attains majority, how do I make sure the fund is not misused, as I will not be able to manage the fund? Please suggest steps so that I should keep my money safe.
Okay.
I think this question would also apply to other accounts that we have opened in the name of minors, say a public provident fund which would mature when the child attains majority. So
Yeah,
how do you
but
protect that?
see, when you open a PPF for a special need child, you open it under a legal guardianship. Okay, so if he or she is a special need child, the account has to open under a legal guardianship. So PPF, when you open under a legal guardianship, then you are managing the, the account for the child. So when it matures, you can withdraw the money and use it for the special need child. See, the money which now the money which is there with respect to the special need child account, if you form a trust, the money which is there in the personal name of the special need child can be transferred to the trust. There is no problem in that. They can be transferred to the trust which you have created for special. But first of all, you would have opened an account in the name of, you have opened an account in the name of minor now. Once he or she become adult, have to change that account under a legal guardianship.
Okay. So from a taxation perspective, is HUF a better proposition over private trust?
Sorry, come again. Which one?
From a taxation perspective, is HUF a better proposition over private trust?
No, HUF is not. See, taxation perspective, HUF just give you a tax advantage. HUF won't solve the problem of estate planning. It's a tax planning tool rather than an estate planning tool. So HUF is not solving the lifelong care of your special child, because there is no deed, there is no provision of managing. It cannot be, the money cannot be, aligned to your special need child objective. So these are both completely different legal entities. You cannot really, say that one is better than the other. Private trust is largely not for the tax. It is mainly for managing the special need child affairs. You have very less tax benefit. First of all, it is tax at the beneficiary level as an individual only. What you don't get is the Section 80C or Section 80D. All those benefits the trust does not get it. But income is taxed as an individual. So if your child is at a 20% tax level slab, the trust income will also be taxed as a 20% tax slab, right? So from that perspective, has those advantages, tax advantages with respect to special need child, because it is being taxed separately. But other than that, I really, you really can't compare, because the objective of these two tools is completely different.
Okay. I think that's about it. No more questions, new questions that have come up. So, sir, it was a great and very knowledgeable, informative session. We have still participants holding on to us, listening to all your resolutions. To start with, it was a very great guide on how to begin and how important is budgeting and planning in the entire exercise. As they say that a stupid with a plan can even beat a genius without a plan. So the importance of planning has come out, and I think we have been guided very well by you on the importance of planning and how to take it forward. And one very important point that I picked up from your thing was that the parents have to prepare for more working years. So that's where I think parents also needs to take care of themselves, because we have to go a long way forward. Uh, I think that's all from my side, and it was a very informative session. Rekha ma'am?
Yeah.
There is a hand raised by Sumant Hanikari.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is any question on that.
Suman sir, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Mr. Sumant Hanikeri. Mr. Hanikeri, you can unmute and ask your questions if you have any. I think he's not. Rekha ma'am, would you like to say something?
Sir,
this host is not allowing anybody to. Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Hanikeri.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Now I am audible, I think. First, 2-3 questions here. One is, most of the insurance companies, they are not covering these special needs children in their floater policies. That's one thing, whether any policy difficulty is there in this. And I also suggested that the government should come out with a social security scheme, basically for like special needs children, so that invest in the failing banks. So with that, you'll always suffer that what your investments are going to be in the long run. So these are some of the concerns which I have expressed in the chat here, but I would just want to have a discussion on that. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, sir. Jitendra sir, did you hear the question?
No, if you can.
Suman sir, even it was not clear for me. Could you repeat the question, please? Hello? Mr. Suman?
Hello.
Suman sir, either you type the question or if you could repeat it.
I have already typed the concerns in my chat, this thing. If you can see that. Yeah,
most insurance companies don't cover the special needs children in their floater policies.
In their floater policies.
Yeah.
And I suggest, yeah. And that's one thing. The second thing is about the government creating a social security for these children, where we can contribute. Like that, it can be a better option, I feel. And because the interests are falling, almost the government is intending to bring down the interest deposit rates to such a low level. Investments are going to be rather difficult in the long run. So these are the concerns with which I just typed those chats in the chat box. I have already typed those things. Please go through, and if you can have a discussion on that, it is good for everyone, I would say.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you were. You can just
you could hear me.
Questions?
Yeah, I have read the question written in the chat box also.
Yeah, in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, so insurance companies, yes, I do agree, they're not covering special needs children in the floater or any policy. It's very difficult, to uh, say anything here, but somehow, this insurance company started covering it because the regulators have been, strict on that, and plus there are some court cases also going on, on which companies are having, maybe on genetic disorders or others. So as of now, it's still not covered. Maybe I see next 4 or 5 years something might come up into this also. So some products somewhere, some health insurance companies might come out with, but yes, as of now it's not covered, so there is nothing else which as a parent also you can do instead of creating a health fund. With respect to other things, specific, anything specific to special children families is not there, even with investments also. Okay, so there also you have to look at all the avenues which are available, to other families also, or in a traditional concept also. But even LIC used to have something special, but it was withdrawn in 2014 and they haven't reintroduced it. They came out with another product, largely for retirement life, a pension plan where the benefit can go to special child also, but that's the only one which is available. Apart from that, largely on investment, insurance, on all these, yes, that's a drawback as of now today, that you have to do it arranging your own resources. There is nothing else, which is available from even the government side, or anything from insurance companies. So, but I expect it at least next 4 to 5 years something would come up, probably on health insurance. I don't know on investment, but something on health insurance should come. Uh, Ashish, there are some
Yes,
questions which
there is
came
one
on
question that
private.
has come.
Yeah.
Does the litigation on the
Okay.
parent or the trustee, the creator of the trust, does it affect the trust that is formed?
Totally depends on
Someone,
when
where is my
trust is
phone?
formed. So if the trust is formed during the litigation, it might affect, it will affect on the assets. The assets you own, these assets, are going to come to the trust because there is some litigation already going on. But if trust is formed early, and the litigation happens later on, largely should not affect. So the litigation on father should not affect the trust. Formation it won't affect. The funding might, the asset still has to come to the trust. If you have transferred, if you've created an irrevocable trust, have transferred the asset before the litigation, then largely the asset would be secured. But if it's an revocable trust or the assets are still not transferred, then the impact of litigation might be there on the funds.
Okay. Sir, if we can get a soft copy of the presentation that you have shared today, sir.
Session is being recorded, so
Yeah,
probably
it's being
the
recorded.
recording
Ashish,
would be.
Yes, it is being recorded.
Ashish, we are recording it, so we will be having it. And Mr. Solanki, I
Yes,
don't have enough words to thank you. As usual,
thank you,
I did not even shut my eyes, which I normally sleep in the afternoon. It was so informative. And I think the younger
thank
generation
you.
parents are really blessed to have a person like you. And I think there are lots and lots of questions, but you said that maybe in 4 and 5 years, we should have lots of insurance companies coming in. I wish you would also help with this insurance because it's becoming quite a big issue for parents running from pillar to post,
I do agree.
you know. So if you could also precipitate this and help us take this forward as a
Yes,
federation, we are writing to everybody we can lay our hands on, but we would like you to tell us what the pros and cons are of this is. And
sure.
thank you so much for being there for us. And I think you have more than done your share of filling in on all the subjects that they all wanted. I think everybody is going to be a little rested today, at least for today, and come back tomorrow and ask you more questions. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you,
Thank you
thank
for being
you, thank you, Rekhama, for that, and thank you giving me this opportunity.
here.
I'm
Thank you. And
pleased
Ashish,
that
thank you
I've
for
been
being
able to
here.
cover last.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brinda.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.